We first meet Joseph from Cyprus in Acts 4, where he's selling a field he owns and donating the money to the first church. His nickname is Barnabas, which means son of encouragement. Later, Barnabas is the first of the believers to stand up for Paul after his conversion. Barnabas is a preacher and a missionary in his own right. He was sent by the Jerusalem church to Antioch. In Acts 15, it describes his work there. When he came and saw the grace of God, he was glad, and he exhorted them all to remain faithful to the Lord with steadfast purpose. For he was a good man, full of the Holy Spirit and of faith, and many people were added to the Lord. It was actually Barnabas who invited Paul to be part of the ministry happening in Antioch, and then traveled back with him to Jerusalem. Once again, it was Paul and Barnabas who were sent out by the Jerusalem church on the first missionary journey. Paul and Barnabas, Barnabas and Paul, the great missionaries of Acts taking the world by storm. And yet, this nearly 18-year friendship breaks over a disagreement. In our class today, we ask ourselves, what kind of friend am I? And we look at all of our relationships and see how they affect us for good or for bad. I'm here in Perga, where the beginning of the breakup of the dream team occurs. It's here that John Mark decides to desert the missionary journey and go back to Jerusalem instead of continuing on to Antioch of Pisidia. Luke, the writer of Acts, doesn't really give us a whole lot of information as to why John Mark deserts the ministry. He just reports the event and we return to the missionary journey already in progress. In fact, we don't hear much about John Mark until later when Paul says to Barnabas, "Let's go back and visit each city where we previously preached the word of the Lord to see how the believers are doing." Barnabas agreed and wanted to take along John Mark, but Paul disagreed strongly, since John Mark had deserted them here in Perga and had not continued with them in their work. The disagreement was so sharp that they separated. Barnabas took John Mark and went to Cyprus. Paul chose Silas. As he left, the believers entrusted him to the Lord's gracious care. Barnabas, the son of encouragement, is ready to give John Mark another chance. Paul, the purveyor of truth, disagrees strongly. Which one is right? Luke doesn't give us much information to assist us in choosing sides, except to say that the church may have been on Paul's side by saying the believers entrusted him to the Lord's gracious care. Barnabas seems to focus on the need and potential of John Mark. Paul focuses on the larger cause of the gospel and the honor of the mission and the demands that comes with it. These two spiritual powerhouses have differing strengths. Paul stands for the truth. His strength is easily seen in Galatians 2:11-14. When Cephas came to Antioch, however, I opposed him to his face because he stood to be condemned. For before certain men came from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. But when they arrived, he began to draw back and separate himself for fear of those in the circumcision group. The other Jews joined in his hypocrisy, so that by their hypocrisy, even Barnabas was led astray. When I saw that they were not walking in the line with the gospel, I said to Cephas in front of them all, "If you, who are a Jew, live like a Gentile and not like a Jew, how can you compel the Gentiles to live like Jews?" Barnabas falters in this area because his strength as a son of encouragement makes him vulnerable to minimizing the truth for the sake of relationships. We need friends with diverse strengths. Isn't it beautiful that after Paul's conversion, when no one would take a risk on him, Barnabas came forward and saved him for the cause of Christ? And then now, when Barnabas is faltering in the area of truth, Paul comes forward and saves him for the cause. The once strong missionary team splits in two. But I don't think we can see this as an ultimate end to a friendship. Instead, we need to see it as one missionary team emerging as two. Twice as many teams reaching the world for the gospel, following the commands of Jesus. In 1 Corinthians 9:6, Paul refers to Barnabas as a fellow worker who shares his life and labor. In 2 Timothy 4:11, Paul calls for John Mark, saying, "He is very useful in serving me." The Lord brought victory out of contention. The breach was healed. Neither left the ministry. Neither allowed this disagreement to derail what God was doing in his church. So what kind of friend are you? When times get hard, do you quit? Are you the strength to your friend's weakness? As we continue through the rest of these chapters, let's allow God to show us where we need to grow in our relationships with others.